Peter Freestone sat with Freddie Mercury for 12 hours on his last night. At 8 a.m., Freddie said two words. Peter never understood them. Friday, November 22nd, 1991. Garden Lodge, Kensington, 8 o'clock in the evening. You are Peter Freestone. You have worked for this man for 12 years. You know which mug he prefers for his morning tea. You know the exact pitch of his laugh when something has genuinely surprised him. You know the sound of his voice in every room of this house, at every hour of the day, in every mood he has ever been in. Tonight, at 8 o'clock, Freddie Mercury released a statement to the world confirming he had AIDS. And at 8 o'clock, you began your shift. 12 hours. You will sit beside him until 8 in the morning. He will sleep and wake and sleep again. Each time he wakes, your hand will be there so he knows he is not alone. You will not talk much. There is not much left to say that has not already been said across 12 years of being in the same room. At 8 in the morning, you will begin to stand up to leave. He will take your hand. He will look at you. He will say thank you. And then you will spend the rest of your life not knowing what those two words were for. Peter Freestone first saw Freddie Mercury in 1973. He was having tea at the Rainbow Room restaurant at Biba in London when something made every person in the room look up at the same moment. Freddie walked in, long dark hair, fox fur jacket, black painted nails. The specific quality of a person who has decided that attention is not something to manage, but something to occupy. Freestone looked. Everyone looked. Then the moment passed and tea continued. He was working at the Royal Opera House at the time. He was more of a classical music man. He was not starstruck by the person in the fox fur jacket in the way that some people would have been. He simply noted that the room had changed when the person entered it, and then he finished his tea. 6 years passed before they spoke. The second meeting was at an after-show party in 1979 when Freddie Mercury had just performed with the Royal Ballet at the Coliseum. Someone introduced them. Freddie asked Freestone what he did. Freestone explained that he looked after costumes. That was that. A week later, someone from Queen called him out of the blue. A job was on offer. Within a year, Peter Freestone had left the Royal Ballet and moved into Garden Lodge and become Freddie Mercury's personal assistant, which was a word that captured almost none of what he actually was. He was the person who knew where everything was. He was the person who made sure the right things were in the right rooms before Freddie needed them there. He was the person who absorbed the noise of being Freddie Mercury so that Freddie Mercury did not have to absorb all of it himself. They had pet names for each other. Freddie was Melina. Peter was Sharon. They had 12 years of mornings and tours and recordings and parties and the specific texture of knowing someone so well that you no longer need to finish sentences in their presence because they already know where the sentence is going. In May 1987, on a quiet morning in Garden Lodge when no one else was home, Freddie Mercury told Peter Freestone he had AIDS. He said it plainly. He said they would not talk about it again. He said, as far as I'm concerned, I have the rest of my life to live, so let's get on with it. Peter Freestone has described the moment his heart dropped out of his chest. He knew, in the way everyone knew in 1987, that what he was being told was a death sentence, and that from that moment forward, everything he did for this man was not going to help him survive, it was going to help him live until the end. He said yes. He stayed. He did not leave for 4 more years. Those 4 years were not 4 years of decline. That is the version people reach for because it is the simplest shape, and it is wrong. They were 4 years of the miracle and innuendo. Of Barcelona with Montserrat Cabal, which Freestone witnessed at close range, Freddie in the car on the way home from the studio, turning to say, "That's it. I've done it. I've got her voice on my music." Of tours and interviews and the 1990 Brit Awards, which was Freddie's last public appearance, where he walked onto the stage and collected the award and said what he needed to say and walked off. And nobody in the audience understood that they were watching a last time. Freestone was there for all of it. He was there when Freddie decided that the illness would not be announced, would not be discussed, would not be permitted to alter the work. He was there when the work continued. And he was there in October 1989 when doctors told him to prepare himself. Because Freddie probably would not be alive by Christmas. Freddie was alive for 2 more years. By November 1991, Garden Lodge had reorganized itself around what was coming. 3 people rotated through overnight watches so Freddie was never alone in the night: Peter Freestone, Jim Hutton, Joe Finelli. The doctor Gordon Atkinson, who was also a friend, came when he was needed. Mary Austin came every day or close to it, from the house she lived in nearby. Carrying things in bags, the way people carry things, when the carrying itself is a form of saying, "I am here." On November 10, Freddie had made a decision. He stopped taking the medication that was keeping him alive. He had lost, to AIDS, almost every form of autonomy over his own body. The illness dictated what he could eat, how far he could walk, what his face looked like in a mirror. What he could still control was when. He chose when. He stopped the pills. He told the people around him. They said nothing that would have helped or hurt, and nothing that was the wrong thing. Because there was no wrong thing to say. And they stayed with him. On the evening of Friday, November 22, at 8 o'clock, Freddie's manager Jim Beach came, and they finalized the statement that would go to the press. It was a single paragraph. It confirmed what the world had been printing in careful speculative language for 2 years. It said, "I wish to confirm that I have been tested HIV positive and have AIDS." Freddie had rewritten it several times over several days, adding a line, removing a line, looking for the version that said what needed to be said without saying anything he was not willing to say. The version that went out was spare and clear and gave the world the fact and nothing else. After it was released, Freestone has said, Freddie was different. The tension of the secret, 4 years of it, the weight of managing what people saw and what they did not see, the work of never being the object of pity in any room he entered, that tension was gone. He was relaxed in a way Freestone had not seen him in years. The secret was done. He was no longer hiding. That night, at 8 o'clock, Peter Freestone began his 12 hours. What they talked about in those 12 hours was the house. Whether everything downstairs was clean and tidy, whether things were in their right places. This was Freddie Mercury, a man who had just told the world he was dying of AIDS, who had chosen to stop the medication that was keeping him alive, who was lying in a cream-walled bedroom in his Kensington house, surrounded by the furniture he had chosen piece by piece over a decade. And what he wanted to know, in the last long conversation of his life, was whether the house was in order. Peter Freestone has said this without elaboration. He reports it as a fact. The house. Clean and tidy. Everything in its right place. Freddie Mercury, right to the end, making sure the room was right. Freddie slept and woke through the night. Each time he woke, Freestone was there. He held his hand so that Freddie would know he was not alone. That is the exact phrase Freestone has used. In multiple accounts, across multiple years. So he knew he was not alone. It was not a complicated thing to do. It required nothing except staying. Freestone stayed. He did not document the specific rhythm of the night, which hours Freddie slept through, which hours he was awake, whether there was more conversation, whether the conversation returned to the house or moved somewhere else. What he has documented is the hand, the presence, and the intention behind both, so he knew someone was there. This is what 12 years of knowing someone closely becomes at the end. Not grand statements, not summaries of what the relationship meant, just a hand, just, I am here. Just, you are not alone. 8:06 in the morning, Jim Hutton has documented this separately in his memoir. Freddie woke and said 2 words. He needed help to the bathroom. Those were the last words Jim Hutton heard him speak. Then, Freddie went back to bed and fell into a coma. Freestone called Dr. Atkinson. Morphine was administered. Freddie Mercury never regained consciousness. Between 6 in the morning and 8 in the morning, the transition happened, from the final waking to the final sleep, and the house held it the way the house had held everything, quietly, without announcement, with the curtains in their usual positions and the furniture in the places Freddie had chosen for them, and the cats somewhere in the rooms below. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Peter Freestone began to rise to leave. He had been there for 12 hours. His shift was ending. The rotation meant that someone else would come, or had perhaps already arrived, or was on their way. He began to stand. And Freddie Mercury, who had been lying still in the pale early light of the November morning, took his hand. They looked at each other. Freddie said, "Thank you," 2 words. Then 8 o'clock became the moment before and the moment after. And Peter Freestone walked out of the room, and Freddie Mercury fell into the sleep he did not come back from. Freestone has never said what his face did when the door closed behind him. He has never said whether he stood in the corridor for a moment or whether he went directly downstairs, or whether there was anyone in the hallway when he emerged. He has said only this: "To this day, I don't know if the thank you was for the night or for the 12 years. I don't know. And I'll never know." On Christmas Day 1991, 4 weeks after Freddie died, Peter Freestone was at home. He was grieving in the way you grieve when the person you have spent 12 years looking after is gone and you are suddenly not needed in the specific way you were needed. And the absence of that need is its own kind of loss. A friend arrived at his door, carrying something wrapped in a pillowcase. Freestone opened it. Inside was a painting by Henry Scott Tuke, one of Freestone's favorite artists, a fact Freddie had known and remembered. On the front of the package was a note in Freddie's handwriting. It read, "Dear Sharon, I thought you'd like this. Love, Melina. Happy Christmas." Freddie Mercury had arranged the gift before he died. He had chosen the painting. He had written the note in their private language, the language of 12 years of friendship. The drag queen nicknames they had given each other, in the way that people who have been in each other's company long enough develop a private language that no one else fully enters. Freestone has said he was 44 years old and crying like a child. The thank you is the question that cannot be answered, because there is only one person who knew the answer, and that person said 2 words in the early morning of November 23 and then went away. Freestone has turned it over in interviews for 30 years. He has said, "I don't know," with the particular honesty of someone who has genuinely sat with a question for 3 decades without arriving at a resolution. Not performing uncertainty, experiencing it. The ambiguity is real and permanent, and he has chosen to carry it rather than resolve it by choosing one meaning and discarding the other. Because both meanings are true, in the way that only certain things are true simultaneously without contradiction, it was for the night. Because the night had been long, and Freddie was not alone in it. And it was for the 12 years. Because the 12 years had been everything. Both, neither 2 words, that contained a decade and a half of mornings and moves and recordings and parties and quiet evenings and the particular silence of a house when its loudest person is asleep. 2 words from a man who had always preferred to express what mattered in the fewest possible syllables, spoken at the exact moment when he had everything left to say and the least time remaining to say it. Peter Freestone left Garden Lodge at 8 in the morning on November 23, 1991. Freddie Mercury died on November 24 at 6:48 in the morning. Between those 2 moments, between the thank you and the last breath, Freestone was not in the room. He was somewhere else in London, or in the house, or somewhere in the ordinary world that continues to exist around extraordinary things. He was not there when Jim Hutton held Freddie in the final moment and said that Freddie's face went back to everything it had been before, that he looked finally and totally at peace. He was not there for that. What he had was the thank you. 2 words, at 8 in the morning, in a cream-walled bedroom, from a man who had 12 years of reasons to say them. He does not know which reason it was. He has kept the not knowing the way you keep something that was given to you privately and cannot be returned and has no correct interpretation, carefully, honestly, without resolution, for the rest of your life.